Hello everyone, welcome back in another video. I'm about today. Date is 29th of September 2022, and in our today's video, we are going to see different keys and constraints in SQL. Before going to see different types of keys, we are discussing about the constraints because constraints is a very important point in our SQL. When we are seeing a point of view for the examination or in point of view of interview, that time that is the very most important question about the constraint. So let's we discuss about constraint. So constraint is a nothing but it is a we can also call it as a condition or a restriction for the particular for a particular attributes. We are putting conditions and a restriction on our attributes. Attributes means the columns. We know our SQL or database are having a SQL database are having a structure in a row and columns. So in that case, for the column we can call as attributes, and for row we can call as a tuple. So we are applying a constraints on a attributes. That means on a columns. So why we need to apply attributes, or why we need to apply a conditions on a column? Let's we see. Because of some scenarios are there. That's why if we are not putting some particular restriction or not putting some conditions for the input the data, that user can mix that data or put any kind of data. Suppose we have to enter the mobile number. That time they can put any kind of name or any kind of different kind of number or mobile number, having length of 15 or 16. So that's why within some scenarios we have to put some restriction on the input data, or we have to put some restriction on our attributes. So there are different types of constraints, or different types of conditionals are there, like um, like unique, not null, primary key, check, foreign key, or default. We can discuss all those one by one. So first one is a unique. So why we need that unique condition, or why we need that unique restriction? Suppose there is a data of students. That time that data can having different types of variation, like that student's name, student's roll number, student's marks, student's date of birth. So these all parameters are within that particular database. So we need to apply a uniqueness on some attributes. So these attributes are like that attributes like a student's roll number. That means we must have to uniqueness within a roll number, because we are not applying that uniqueness on their names or on their marks, because these are variable things. That means repeatability. That means some kind of students are having the same name, or some kind of students are having same marks. So that's why we are not able to apply on a uniqueness on that particular manner. But why we need to apply the uniqueness condition? Because of suppose there is a class of 500 students, and we are putting the data for the 500 students, and then we have to call the particular student. That time we no need to store the we no need to take the detail about that student regards name, marks, or date of birth. We only find out that the unique key, or we have find out that the unique number which are allocated for that students, and by that unique number we can able to get overall information regarding that students, like a name, marks, and date of birth. That's why we have to add that uniqueness. Suppose in students can, if we are putting any application, that time we are having the in a database, we are also put that uniqueness for a mobile number. That means each student can have their parent number as a parent mobile number as a uniqueness. So there is not repeatability or duplicability of the number. After that, the next important condition, or next important constraint is a not null. So we have to put that condition not null in a case of suppose there is a application form, or there is a, let's take example of a Gmail or email. We are using a mail, that time we have to put the username and password. But suppose we are not putting a restriction for the password, that time if any user can only put their username and get logged in within that account, so that is a huge issue for the security purpose. That's why we have to put the implementation of a not null or indefinite. For that case, we have to restrict it to implement any data. Not null means is not there is a value of zero. Null means it is a empty. Empty means not any type of character, like not a zero is also present in that case. Not null means completely empty. Not null, we see that not null. When we are filling a form for the college, or when we are filling any kind of form, that time there is a star mark. That star mark is having a meaning of a compulsion. That means when in any particular form there is within that box they are giving a star mark. That star mark's meaning is compulsion. That means we have to fill that data within that particular box. That means we are not able to put that data as a null, or we are not skip that box without putting the data. That means we are putting a restriction for a not null condition. After that, the next one constraint is a parameter primary key. So what are the requirement for the primary key is that primary key means the primary key is nothing but is the unique key, or it is a combination of a unique and not null. That means each and every database should must have any primary key at least once. That means that is actually wrong sentence. Each and every database should have a primary key, because there is a huge data. As we discussed, there is a data of 500 students. So when we have to find out any students, that time we are not finding that student by their name, by their marks, or by their date of birth. We are finding that student on their particular roll number, because when we are get the admission or get the detail of that student, we pass the particular roll number to that student, and when we call that roll number, we get the whole data of that student. That means there is a combination of a uniqueness and not null condition. That two conditions are combined within that, in that scenario. That is the primary key. Primary key is a very must and very important point within our SQL. We can get different video on that primary key. After that, the next point is the check condition. Okay, suppose when we are creating a application or a website for the voting ID, so within that voting ID we have to implement some checking statements, because so there is a lots of huge amount of people who want to register on a voting site. That time that site should check that registered candidate is above the age of 18 or equal to age of 18. If it is greater than or equal to 18, it's that candidate only can apply for the voting card, unless they are not able to apply for the voting card. So in that scenario, that time we have to apply that particular condition of check, that is age is greater than or equal to 18 in that attribute of age. By that attribute we can easily get that candidate which are having age above the 18 or equal to 18, and only those candidates can apply for the voting card. After that, the next our next constraint is a foreign key. Foreign keys is also one more important point in the SQL. We are not able to give a whole description on that foreign key. We will again make another video. So basically foreign key is a it works as, there is, suppose there is a two different tables which are having their different primary keys, but that keys are having a relational connection between that two tables. That time we are using a foreign key. That means it is a connection between the two different tables from two different databases. After that, the next our conditional or next constraint is a default. Suppose if any database is constant, that means we have to some particular default values are there. That means we are not no need to put that value again and again within the database. That time we have to put that value as a default. Suppose we are creating a database for a 10th class student. So that time we are take that name of students, marks of students, class of student, and village of that students. So that time we are taking a data of 10th class students. So that time we no need to put again and again the class of that student as a 10th class. So we can put that class as a default for that student as a 10th class. We only have to fill the name, marks, and the village of that student. If we are not putting that class of student, it get a default class. It take a default value as a 10th within that tuple. So that is the making that default within our database. So by using all that constraint, we are able to make that database as easier for the adding data, and we are make that our database as a particularly in safe field or within the particular data manner. Okay, after that constraint we are going toward the different types of keys which are used in our SQL or we used in our RDBMS. RDBMS is nothing but relational database management system. So RDBMS containing lots of keys, but we can see the most important keys from the RDBMS. These are some keys like candidate key, primary key, alternate key, super key, and composite key. We can see all those key one by one. Okay, for the taking overall scenario regards that key, we take a one standard example for throughout that keys. We take one example and we can convey all the concept of key from that one example. We are taking example of any company database. That database are containing attributes of employee ID, employee name, employee date of birth, employees date of joining, and employees SSN. That means that SSN means that is the standard security number. That is the unique number which are given by the government, and that is the private or secret number which is unique as per the human. That means it is a unique number that is vary from man to man. That is not equal number. Okay. So within that, by using that example, we see or discuss all those keys used in SQL. So we can discuss firstly about the candidate key. Candidate key means it is a key which is attribute. Candidate key is a attribute in a relational table that gives of a uniqueness for each tuple or each row within our database. That is a relational table having one or more than one candidate key within that database. Okay, so that means that the whole database can containing one or more than one candidate key. So what is candidate key? Let's we see. Candidate key means it is a make the relational contact between the attributes and tuples. That means within the row and columns, it makes the relational between that all database. That means there is nothing but it is the unique attribute. So within our example, there is a different kinds of attributes like employee ID, employee name, date of joining, date of birth, and NSS, SSN. So in that case, what are the parameters we can called as a candidate key? First one is our employee ID. First attribute is the employee ID. So employee ID is a unique for the each and every employee. That means there is not any chance of repeatability of ID or repeatability of value. That means it is the completely unique ID. That means employee ID is one of our candidate key. We can also call it as a candidate key because that is not any kind of a relational with the another's data. That is completely unique. After that, the next attribute is a employee name. So there is a might be a chance that some kind of employees are having a similar name. So we cannot call that attribute of employee name as a candidate key. After that, there is a date of birth and a date of joining. So again, in that case, there is a might be chance that some employees are having same date of birth or some employees are having same date of joining. So that's why we are not able to call that two attributes as a candidate key. After that, our next attribute is a SSN. That means social security number, and that social security number is a unique. That means as per each and every person, that standard security number is a unique. So we can also call that SSN as a candidate key. So within our example, there are two candidate key, that is the employee ID and SSN. That means that is the overall meaning of our candidate key. After that, our next key is a primary key. In our previous discussion about contents, we are discussing about the primary key, and the primary key comes again here. So is the primary key is the candidate key primary, that is the most unique to primary uniqueness in the table at that type of a level. That means the primary key means that key which we are able to share with the anyone or any other for the taking care about overall data access. That means that key is not having any trouble to communicate with each other, or not any kind of trouble for the data for the as per the security purpose. So as we see, our database containing a two candidate key, that is a employee ID and NSS. So in that scenario, employee ID is unique, so we can easily share that employee ID. So there is not any kind of a security purpose. But NSS is a private number. That means it is a hidden number. We are not easily share anyone that NSS. That means that NSS is a unique number, but we are not able to share with that anyone. That's why we are not consider that NSS as a primary key. So we are restrict that NSS as a primary key. Primary key is a unique key which are containing a uniqueness. That means there is not any repeatability of that particular value within a whole database. So in that case, our primary key is a only employee ID. We remove that NSS from the primary key. After that, the next key is our alternate key. Okay, alternate key is nothing but there is a number of candidate key. We can put the some particular key as a primary key, and remaining keys are we called as an alternate key. That means in our example, our SSN is our alternate key, which we are not used as a primary key, or any kind of different types of attributes are there. So we can call that different attributes which we are not using as a primary key. We can call that attribute as a alternate key. After that, the next one is our super key. So super key, we can create some attributes which are not a primary key. That means in that scenario, our employee's date of birth and employee's name are not considered as a primary key, because there is not any uniqueness. But if we are create that data as a primary key by using a different combination, that means we can create a combination of a employee ID plus their name and then employee date of birth. So we can create that uniqueness by combination of that employee ID, employee name, and employee date of birth. So that complete data or that complete attributes can called as a super key. That means the data makes as a super key by using non primary key as a primary key. After that, our last important point is that combination key. Combination key means suppose in our database there is not any key which can called as a unique key. We can remove that. Suppose we are removing that employee ID from our database. That means there is not any uniqueness, and our NSS is unique, but we are not able to share that number with anyone. That's why we are not taking that parameter again, that attributes again. So what remaining is there? The remaining is the employee name, date of birth, or date of joining. Employee date of joining. So in suppose in that any scenario there is not any primary or any candidate key is present in our database, we can create a combination of different attributes, and we create that attributes as a primary, or we can use that attributes as a candidate key. So for that scenario, we can we can composite the different attributes like that employee name, employee date of birth. But might be a chance that employee are having same names, and there is might be chance or probably chance of that employer having same date of birth. That means same name and same date of birth. So there is a chance to the collision of that data. That's why we can adding one more attributes, that is our date of joining. So in that scenario, what data are there? The data of name of employee, date of birth of employee, and date of joining of employee. So there is a slightly chance to the collision, but not actually, but there is slightly chance of a collision. So as per our requirement, we can insert the different kind of attributes in our combination key, in our in our composite key. So there is not any restriction for a size. We can easily add the attributes as a combination key, but it depends on us how many size or how many lengthy we are making that primary key. So that is the overall about the composite key. So in our complete video, we are briefly discussed about the different kinds of different types of keys. These are candidate key, primary key, alternate key, super key, and composite key. And we are also discussed about the constraint. Constraint means a condition or a restriction. We are discussing about the constraint like unique, not null, primary key, check, foreign key, and default. So that is overall about different keys and constraints in our SQL. Thank you.